What is up, y'all? It's your boy Charles on this world. Listen, we are checking out originals. I was gonna say American Gangster, original gangsters, uh, by Ben Westhoff. Let's go ahead and check this video out, and I'm gonna come back with my reaction. Hit that thumbs up button.
Dr. Dre later grumbled. Dre's production skills accelerated rapidly. He and clientele camped out in the studio for days at a time, enlisting others to bring them food or clean clothes. The crew's first show was opening for New Edition at Fremont High School, and they began attracting bigger crowds for their live performances, featuring sweaty dance floor numbers and sexy slow jams. When Eve After Dark closed in 1985, Lonzo began hosting parties at a Compton spot called Dudo's. The crew played there as well as the adjacent
I've heard stories about Dudos. Anybody got any stories about Dudos? Leave it in the comments for the OGs out there.
skating ring, Skateland. Lonzo rocked the keytar. Moore's Day in the Time song The Bird inspired one of the crew's synchronized dance routines, complete with slide steps, hip swivels, and bird-like arm flapping. Decked out in doctor suits of powder blue or purple satin, Dre had fun with it, and crowds dug their energy. "We was appealing to the women back then," said DJ Yella. With Lonzo steering the ship, the glammed-up smooth operators began performing shows around the country, sharing stages with sexified funk and R&B-leaning acts including the Bar-Kays, Orin Juice Jones, and Rick James Mary Jane Girls. They graduated from headlining skating rinks to playing an early hip-hop event called Fresh Fest at the 12,000-capacity Wembley Arena in London. In 1986, they won a record deal with CBS, complete with a $100,000 advance. Problems quickly emerged. Clientele said he looked into the group's financial records and saw irregularities. It was enough to convince him to leave the crew before their next album, Wrapped in Romance, released on the CBS subsidiary Epic. Lonzo admitted he took the greatest share of their $100,000 advance. The others couldn't help but notice his new house and BMW, but insisted it was because he was the investor and label owner, and more sensibly managed his earnings. When Wrapped in Romance tanked in 1986, they were dropped by CBS. Things looked bleak. Though their independently released 1987 song, Turn Off the Lights, became their biggest hit, the group was already broken up by the time it got popular. Dr. Dre had had enough. It wasn't just about the money. He tired of the group's frou-frou image and believed their glossy, pandering ballads were out of touch. He wanted to make hard-edged music like Run DMC, or maybe like Ice-T's new song, 6 in the Morning. But Lonzo wasn't interested. Ballads were their bread and butter. "They wouldn't do my songs," Dre said. "They said they'd never get on the radio." Dre knew better. Run DMC slayed at Eve After Dark. Though they only played for about 10 minutes, the show affected him profoundly. Their hard-edged rhymes and powerful beats showed him that kick-ass hip-hop could thrill a crowd, and he was certain that he could do that. The California Shake.
It's crazy because I remember those. I was a little kid. I remember motherfuckers used to. It was called the androgyny era. People used to dress like Prince, and even Michael Jackson used to have like a little makeup on. You know what I'm saying? Michael Jackson. I'm sorry. Prince had eyeliner and stuff like that. But I mean, you kind of can't blame Alonzo if he put the money up behind everything. You would think he want his investment back. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of made sense. But you know. Damn, I didn't know they broke up by the time the song. I remember that song, Turn Off Your Lights. A lot of people don't know that that's Michelle A. saying it's a real powerful ending to that song when this woman has a really strong voice. That's Michelle A. Before she came out.
Around 1986, Eric Wright and a drug-dealing associate fell into a dispute. One of Eric's Volkswagen Bugs was burned to a crisp, right in his parents' driveway. So Eric had the guy's own car burned in response. No one remembers why they were beefing. "It was over either money or girls," said his partner Mark Rucker. But things were getting out of hand. Even Eric's own crew couldn't be trusted. His runner, JD, was dipping into the supply to get high himself. He even stole Eric's radio right out of his car. Eric grew frustrated. The stash from his gunned-down cousin Horace Butler had run out, and Eric now had to purchase his drugs from other suppliers like anyone else. What once seemed like easy money had become stressful. Others were now gunning for him, hoping to take his spot. There was always threats on Eric's life, said his friend Big A. Few knew Eric had another passion in life, which he hoped could get him out of the drug game permanently. Hip-hop. With his friend MC Ren, he'd go shopping for records at the Rhodium Swap Meet. Held on the sprawling Torrance grounds of a former drive-in movie theater, the swap meet featured booths as far as the eye could see, selling everything from laundry detergent to airbrushed t-shirts.
Right there off of Redondo Beach, guys. That swamp meet is still there to this day. Right, this drive-in right there on the corner.
Eric and Ren frequented the stall run by Steve Yano, a Japanese-American one-time psychology grad student who dropped out to sell music. In earlier days, he and his wife, Susan, had thrown disco parties at their house, but their rhodium shop was now frequented by kids looking for the latest jams. Optimally located directly across from the snack bar, the Llanos hung covers like Michael Jackson's Thriller from their awning and played hot cassettes to entice kids. While closing up shop at night, they'd set their pegboards on the ground, and kids sometimes breakdanced or pop-locked right on top of them. Eric didn't know it then, but some of the tapes the Llanos played were made by Andre Young. Eric had known Dre casually from the neighborhood, but had no idea about his prowess on the turntables, about how he compiled the hottest rap hits of the day on TDK's 60-minute cassettes, adding in his signature scratches. You might hear the Fat Boys, King T, or Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock. In exchange, the Llanos gave Andre records full of breakbeats, the drum patterns that he could sample in his own songs. He would tell Steve, "This is going to be a hit. You got to push these records," Susan Llanos said. And he was always right. Eventually, the Llanos began selling these tapes with names like 86 in the Mix for $10 or so, and they became hot sellers themselves. Sure, it wasn't really legal to hawk music they didn't own the rights to, but how else was it going to get out there? Most hip-hop came from New York, and almost nobody else local was selling it. The tapes became so popular that rappers begged to be on them, and Dre began recording artists like Tone Loc and Young MC. Dre also put his own songs on the tapes, which particularly impressed Eric. "What is this?" he asked one day, upon hearing a new track. As Steve Yano explained, Eric finally understood. This was his neighbor's music. He promptly bought up all of Dre's music that Yano had on offer, pulling a bundle of bills out of his sock. "Tell Andre I want to get together," Eric said, and asked for Dre's number. Yano eventually agreed to set up a meeting over the phone. "Next thing I know," Yano said, "those guys are on a three-way call with me at 2 in the morning. Eric wants to open a record store. I tell him, 'Don't do it. It's a bad business. I can show you how, but don't do it.' Instead, Yano suggested they should start a record label. Eric brewed on the idea. In the meantime, Dre needed a new benefactor. He wanted to make songs that were harder and more visceral, but needed money to record in the studio. He knew 2 people who might be willing to help him. One was a local drug dealer named Laylaw Goodman, who worked with him on some early songs, including a spooky Halloween-themed 1985 track called Monster Rapping, which was produced by Dre and Lonzo, and rapped by Laylaw in his spookiest Bela Lugosi Dracula voice. The other was Eric.
Rest in peace to Laylaw. Laylaw actually passed away was it this year? I believe he passed away at the beginning of this year or the end of last year. But
Looking for a professional photographer for your next big event? Need video of your special day? Then look no further. For $100 an hour, have a professional photographer or videographer shoot your wedding, birthday party, quinceañera, bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, anniversary party, or whatever your special occasion may be. Highlight your event with professional, crisp photos and video. Check out Charles Arness Photography on Instagram, as well as book us for your next event. Must live in the Southern California area.
He recently passed away. Rest in peace, Laylaw. He's a LA legend. Hit that thumbs up button.
And so he set about convincing him. The high-powered crew. After Lonzo upgraded to a BMW, he gave Dr. Dre his old Mazda RX-7. It was a flashy car, and Dre racked up a series of moving violations, which led to a warrant being put out for his arrest and him being sent to jail. When Eric found out about the situation, he called up Lonzo. "Dre's in jail," he said. "Give me some money to get him out." Lonzo had been willing to spring Dre from jail before, but on this occasion, he was short on funds and decided to pay his BMW note instead, giving Dre a chance to stew on his own recklessness in the process. Eric decided to bail Dre out himself, and their bond grew. Dre convinced Eric to invest some of his profits into a music venture. Dre and Eric, both now in their early 20s, began recording tapes in a makeshift studio in the latter's garage, mixing popular instrumental tracks and their own creations. Their collaborators included DJ Pooh, later famous for co-writing the 1995 film Friday. "We didn't want to just make mixtapes. We wanted to make the music that wound up on the mixtapes," DJ Pooh said. Eric's mother kept him lubricated with Kool-Aid. Dre and Eric began playing house parties, pool parties, and proms together as a mobile DJ team called High Powered Crew. "We came up with the name because we used to keep money in our pockets," said another member, Horace Mr. Sheen Taylor, Eric's cousin. Showcasing rappers and playing songs like Run DMC's My Adidas, they performed all over South LA, from Downey to Lakewood, piloting Eric's old beat-up Ford truck to gigs, which they called the California Shake because it wobbled when it went over 35 miles per hour. Dre was clearly the star, while Eric, who could DJ a little bit himself, was the operations financier. He bought the necessary equipment and divvied up the couple $100 they might receive per event. Not everybody knew what to make of this pairing, the hardened street cat and the flamboyant entertainer. "I thought he was gay because he wore 2 earrings," said Mark Rucker of Dr. Dre. Eric said,
That was the beginning. Everybody started calling Dre Tupac and everybody. That's crazy. Hit that thumbs up button, y'all.
"He's cool. We're going to do this music thing." Eric took stock. All things considered, he was pretty lucky. Unlike so many others who slanged, he was still alive and not in prison. Horace Butler's fate weighed heavily on him. "I seen that it wasn't really worth it. It wasn't worth my life," Eric said. "I figured I could do something right for a change instead of something wrong." But he wasn't about to be under someone else's thumb. Like in his drug business, Eric preferred to operate independently. "I figure if I work for my damn self, I could lay my own fucking rules," he said.
That's right.
Dre again brought up the idea of the two of them starting a record label together. Eric liked the idea, but his dealing partner looked at him like he was crazy. "What you know about music?" Rucker asked. It was a good point. Eric certainly didn't know how to rap, but the skeptical look on his friend's face turned to gratitude when Eric handed him several ounces of crack. They were his to sell gratis. Eric was done with all that. It was settled. Eric and Dr. Dre would make a real go of this thing. Still, the picture wasn't yet complete. For that, they'd need to combine forces with a cocksure South Central kid, one who still rode the school bus every day.
Anyway, y'all, we're gonna get this from Original Gangsters. This is really interesting. I like this, but this is a really good book by Ben Westhoff. Y'all want to check it out? It's on Audible. But it's interesting how I remember back in the day, boys. They're talking about the '80s. My sister, she was a teenager. She's probably my sister's around the same age. She's probably a little bit younger than Dr. Dre and Easy, but she's been in high school around that time, and she had friends that would mess around in the drug. That was when crack first hit. It was people were getting killed left, and that was in Florida too. So I can only imagine in California. So it's crazy how he was able to get out. That was a blessing. He was able to get out of that. You know what I'm saying? I always thought the Eazy and Dr. Dre grew up together, but I guess they didn't know each other until later on. You know, but they grew up in the same neighborhood. They knew of each other. Like, you know, in most neighborhoods, you know a person because you see him a lot. Oh, that's what's in there. That's like we had a cat in our neighborhood that was a drug dealer named Big Bernard. Big Bernard. He lived in my neighborhood, but I didn't know him. But we knew of him. You know what I'm saying? We would see him at different little spots. He had to clean his Chevys. That was back when people used to fix their Chevys up and stuff like that. But yeah, what y'all think about this, man? This is a good book, Original Gangsters. Leave your comments and subscribe to Charles and Ezra. Appreciate it.